Welcome to The Explainer. We're all about breaking down big, complex topics by looking at the materials that really tell the story. So picture this, a quiet suburban house in Wingcote, Pennsylvania. But on this night, the scene was anything but quiet. The crime was so brutal, it sent these massive shockwaves through academic and religious communities all over the world. So the question is, who was Ismail al-Faruqi, and what made his ideas so dangerous that someone would do this? To even begin to understand the end of his life, we've got to go all the way back to the beginning. We need to trace the journey of this man, who really lived his life trying to build a bridge between two very different worlds. Okay, let's dive right in. Now, to really get al-Faruqi, you can't just think of him as some dusty academic. No, some sources frame him as something much more. An emissary, an ambassador. His life's mission, you see, tells us much bigger and ultimately tragic story. And this quote, this really hits the nail on the head. The betrayed ambassador of the Muslim East to the Christian West. It captures everything. He wasn't just, studying religion from an ivory tower. He was on the ground, actively trying to build a real bridge of understanding. And that mission, well, it put him right in the line of fire. So where did this all start? Well, al-Faruqi's whole way of thinking, his entire intellectual journey, was basically forged in this fire of a dual education he got right from the start. And what's so fascinating is this incredible contrast. On one hand, you have the mosque and his home, where he's learning traditional Islam from his dad, who was an Islamic judge. But then, on the other hand, he goes to school at a French Dominican college, a totally modern Western institution. So you've got this constant push and pull, this feeling of having a foot in two completely different worlds. And that tension, it's going to define his entire life's work. And look, his life wasn't just about books, not at all. Before he even stepped foot in an American university, he was a political figure. We're talking district governor of Galilee, right in the thick of all the turmoil. So the events of 1948, they didn't just make him a refugee. They fundamentally shaped his entire way of seeing the world. So he arrives in America. And what does he do? He just throws himself into mastering Western philosophy. But this incredible quest for knowledge, it led him somewhere he didn't expect, to a massive intellectual crisis. I mean, look at this resume. He just blazes through these degrees from top-tier universities, Harvard, Indiana. He's diving deep into guys like Kant and Nietzsche. But all that study led him to a pretty stark conclusion. He came to believe that without some kind of transcendent foundation, without God, Western ethics just collapses into anything goes moral relativism. And for him, this wasn't just a thought experiment. It created this deep personal need to go back and really reassess his own Islamic heritage. And this is the real turning point. After reaching the peak of Western academia, he makes a deliberate choice to go back. He spends 4 whole years at Al-Azhar University, which is pretty much the intellectual heart of the Islamic world. He's there to build a new foundation for his entire worldview, one that could finally connect both of these traditions. So now, armed with this totally unique education that spans both East and West, al-Faruqi starts to lay out this incredibly bold, ambitious project. His goal? To fix what he called the malaise of the Ummah, basically the crisis of thought that he saw in the modern Muslim world. This quote right here, it just perfectly captures this huge shift in his identity. He says he was a Palestinian, an Arab, a Muslim. But now he's a Muslim who just happens to be an Arab from Palestine. You see the change? He's moving away from nationalism or ethnicity as his main identity and toward this universal Islamic vision. For him, Islam becomes the ultimate framework, the main lens for seeing everything. And right at the heart of this new vision is a concept called tawhid. Now, for al-Faruqi, this was way more than just believing in one God. Think of it more like the ultimate organizing principle. It's the central idea that pulls every single piece of life, we're talking science, art, society, ethics, all of it, into one single, coherent, purposeful whole. Okay, so that idea of tawhid leads directly to his most famous and, most controversial idea, the Islamization of knowledge. Now let's be clear, he wasn't saying let's throw out modern science or sociology, not at all. He was arguing that these fields needed to be regrounded in an Islamic ethical framework. The point wasn't to reject modern knowledge, but to make sure it was working for the ethical and spiritual goals of Muslim societies, not against them. And this whole project wasn't just about Islam in a vacuum. His understanding of other faiths was just incredibly deep. Take this anecdote. A Christian priest, after hearing him speak at a dinner, says he learned more about Christianity in one night than in 30 years of study. That tells you everything. His critiques, his ideas, they were built on a foundation of really deep, serious understanding. He took other religions seriously enough to study them with amazing rigor. Now, that same intellectual project also made him a completely uncompromising critic of Zionism. For him, it wasn't an expression of the Jewish faith. He saw it as a secular nationalist ideology that, in his view, completely violated core principles of justice by displacing the indigenous people of Palestine. He even called it an act of naked robbery by force of arms. So you can see how al-Faruqi's contributions were just immense, and they were really designed to build these intellectual bridges. But, and this is a big but, his totally unapologetic positions on these super sensitive political and religious issues, well, they also created some really powerful enemies. I mean, just look at the sheer volume of his work. It's staggering. We're talking 25 books and more than 100 academic articles. This wasn't some weekend hobby. It shows this incredible intellectual energy, and it really gives you a sense of the massive scale of his mission to reshape modern Islamic thought. And his legacy isn't just what he wrote down. The man was an institution builder. He was a key figure in founding major organizations and even helped establish universities in places like Pakistan and Malaysia. These aren't just names on a list. They are living, breathing institutions that are still shaping Islamic thought to this very day. And this quote, written by someone mourning him, kind of sums it all up. The ink of the scholar is stronger than the assassin's knife. It's this powerful idea that even though his life was taken so violently, his ideas, the ink from his pen, could never truly be silenced. So the story of Ismail al-Faruqi really leaves us with this one heavy question. In a world that's so full of deep divisions, what is the price you pay for trying to be an intellectual bridge builder? His life is just this stark reminder that ideas, well, they aren't just abstract things in books. They're powerful forces, they shape lives, they build institutions, and sometimes, tragically, they can cost the person who champions them absolutely everything.